God damn it, Will. I can't even be sick in peace. Well, looks like our favorite anti-woke grifter is back at it again with a shit take about the MCU, and being the apparent Disney shill that I am, let's uppercut him again, shall we?
Oh dear, 2025 hasn't exactly been a bumper year for the MCU, with back-to-back flops in the shape of Brave New World and Thunderbolts.
We're not even 10 seconds in, and he's already lying. This group, Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, Geeks and Gamers, that one vampire from Blade, they keep trying to sell this lie about marketing. You know the one, that these Marvel movies have giant marketing budgets, so when I show you that Brave New World made almost 2.5 times its reported budget, you, being the nicely trained parrot that you are, would then tell me that this movie's marketing budget was identical to its production budget, meaning the film needed to make around $500 million to break even. If not identical to the budget, something close to it. It's hard to keep up with all the goalpost shifting these people do. Anyway, that's why Will is calling Brave New World a flop, because he's trying to sell you on this marketing budget lie, something that is quite prolific on the internet. Here are all the facts. Number 1, we do not know what the marketing budget for any of these films are because this isn't publicly released information. Oh, that's the entire list. This isn't public information. So where are all these marketing budget quotes you see flying around on the internet even coming from?
It's fiction. We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication. It never happened. This one was invented by a writer. It never happened.
Yeah. People are regurgitating estimates from outlets like Deadline. You see, every year Deadline releases a most profitable movies list where they rank movies based on their supposed profitability. There's only one problem. These numbers are simply made up. Let's look at their 2023 rankings, specifically about the film Anyone But You. In addition to the box office numbers at the top, you can see Deadline lists the production costs of the film, otherwise known as the budget. This film's budget is reportedly $25 million. But under that, you can see Deadline starts listing numbers for prints and ads, residuals, interest, and overhead for a total expenditure of $116 million. And Deadline's source for these numbers? Themselves. This is where you people are getting these numbers from. People guessing. And you could try to argue that these are educated guesses, but even then, Deadline doesn't list their methodology on their website. I know because I spent almost 2 hours looking for it. I also emailed the writer of that article, Anthony D'Alessandro, for clarity on his methodology, and I haven't yet heard back from him, if I ever will. So the point is, anyone professing to know the marketing budget for a film is very likely pulling numbers from their asses, or Deadline, who are also apparently pulling numbers from their asses. We only have 2 numbers to go by, and that's this one and this one. And wait until I tell you that this one is also an estimate. Now, marketing costs something, and I'm not saying that it doesn't. What I am saying is that there exists no actual evidence for these numbers on the internet, and the only people that truly know are the producers who put up the money, not anti-woke YouTubers who have a vested interest in the perception that these movies are failing financially.
And yes, with less than 400 million at the global box office and its theatrical run all but over, even the most die-hard shills have been forced to concede that Thunderbolts is absolutely a flop.
Aw, seems that bad take on Thunderbolts is getting to him, guys. I mean, leaning heavily into whether a movie is a flop is a weird angle, considering you're supposed to be a movie critic, Will. Your concern should be about the quality of a film, not its financials. There are plenty of incredible films that don't make a ton of money at the box office. My favorite film and its sequel being prominent examples. Hell, The Iron Giant is widely recognized as a classic film, but it actually lost Warner Brothers money. Art should not be quantified by how much it sells. There are so many factors that can prevent a film from making money, including luck and timing. That's how you know you're not a real critic, Will, when a movie apparently failing is a point scored on your side. You're just proving that you're a culture war ideologue who has weaseled his way into this discussion when you should be just as derided and ignored as Ben Shapiro is when talking about movies.
And call me crazy here, but something tells me that Ironheart isn't going to turn things around for them.
Well, Ironheart is a TV show on a streaming platform that doesn't release their viewership numbers. Even if it did have a high viewership, we wouldn't know one way or the other. Besides, when do the TV shows ever have any quantifiable impact on the viewership of the films? You people continue to claim you didn't watch WandaVision and that it supposedly impacted Multiverse of Madness. But that film did $1 billion.
That means that everything now rests on the Fantastic Four, the third attempt in the past 20 years to make Marvel's first family work on the big screen. And I think it's fair to say things aren't exactly shaping up well for them.
Once again showing you don't know shit about movies. Reshoots are a normal part of film production. Basically, every movie has them, and that's because despite the advances in AI technology, movies are made by humans. Perhaps if your movie had a couple of reshoots, it might have been better than Brave New World. Regardless, sometimes things need to be tweaked. Sometimes a scene doesn't work as intended, and you only find that out during the editing process. Once again, this is normal. Avengers Endgame had reshoots, for fuck's sake. You all remember the iconic line at the end of the movie?
Iron Man.
Yeah, the result of a reshoot. The critical drinker and other grifters and outrage merchants rely on normal people not knowing this information so they can pretend this is an issue and collect social outrage clicks on their shitty content. He's literally pointing to a routine process in the creation of a film and telling you it's a bad thing. He's either stupid or blatantly lying.
When we were in post-production, myself, Patrick, our editor, Cooper Samuelson, our head of film, we were all, in the edit room day to day, and Patrick was adamant about getting very select sequences. He knew he wanted a scare scene. He knew he wanted one more emotional connector between father and son, and Georgia was key to that. Those reshoots were so integral because one of them wound up being the kind of centerpiece for the entire film campaign, which was this incredible scene in which Josh Lambert goes into an MRI machine.
Hey! Can you let me out? Hey!
I mean, it started out well enough. The first trailer came out to a mostly decent reception that actually generated some positive buzz for a change. Imagine that in 2025. People were appreciating the comic-accurate costumes, the charming retro-futuristic 1960s aesthetic, the emphasis on family and teamwork, and the prospect of a Galactus that was more than just a giant cosmic space farts. Great stuff, Marvel. After half a decade of generic, forgettable slop, the MCU finally seemed to be doing something with a unique look and feel again.
I am completely dumbfounded how anyone can use footage of Multiverse of Madness and Loki and call them generic slop, implying they didn't have a unique look and feel. I mean, the aesthetic in the Fantastic Four trailer is the same aesthetic as in Loki. The TVA had all the sauce of the Fantastic Four. What are you talking about? And Doctor Strange 2 was directed by Sam fucking Raimi. Imagine saying a film that featured scenes that looked like this was generic slop. Now I know you'll lie about anything.
They were fully embracing their comic book origins, goofy costumes and all, instead of trying to make everything look cool and slick and modern.
It's almost like he doesn't know this film is set in the past, and that the MCU did give us modern Fantastic Four costumes. Literally twice.
Maybe, after a quarter of a century of failed attempts, someone might actually do justice to the Fantastic Four. But leave it to Marvel to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The problem started out small at first, like the casting of Reed Richards, which turned out to be trickier than expected. Apparently, the studio approached at least 3 other actors to play Reed, and they all turned it down. But why would they do such a thing? Who in their right mind would turn their back on a leading role in a big-budget Marvel movie with a huge paycheck at the end of it? Well, if I was was a cynical man, I'd say it's because they wrote Reed to be a weak, cowardly pussy who gets bossed around by his far more powerful and assertive wife for most of the movie, and the leading men of Hollywood are getting almost as tired of playing characters like that as we are of watching them.
What the fuck are you waffling about? There's so much wrong here, I don't even know where to begin. First of all, saying they wrote Reed as a cowardly pussy makes zero sense as the film isn't even out yet and we have barely any interactions between the team from the marketing material. How would you know this? This is clearly a made-up issue that you just invented out of thin air, which would explain why your writing is so poor. Second, even if that's how Reed is characterized in this film, and let's be clear, it's not, what makes you think that's the reason Hollywood actors wouldn't want to be a part of this production? You people can't make up your minds. Apparently, Hollywood is full of woke people, but at the same time, they can't find woke people to be in their woke movie and become instantly rich and world famous? Are you dumb? Besides, we have evidence for why people turn down Marvel projects, ironically, from one of this movie's actors, John Malkovich. As you can see, John states the main reason he previously turned down MCU roles was due to the pay and the nature of how these films are made. These are superhero movies, and not every artist is into that sort of thing, and on top of that, they require long-term commitments due to the nature of its shared universe. That's where the "till you're 90" joke comes from in Deadpool and Wolverine.
But then, like a knight in rainbow-coloured armour, a saviour arrived to take up the mantle.
So just blatant homophobia now? I mean, we already knew you were a bigot, but what I want to know is how the fuck are you still monetized on YouTube? I mean, it says it right here, hateful and derogatory content. I mean, you should have already been demonetized when I prove you slandered Isabella Merced with the false quote, as stated right here. But I am constantly amazed how you people continue to escape YouTube's community guidelines. You are the Osama bin Laden of the internet.
That's right, it was Pedro I'll appear in literally anything Pascal, an actor that clearly saw the meme about him taking on far too many roles and said, "More!"
What's with you weird right-wingers and being upset with actors getting work? If it's not Endymion and this demonetized tap dancer getting angry at Deborah Wilson being in a lot of games, it's you and Turd Roddick being upset at Pedro Pascal. And it's not like you can say these people are even bad at their jobs. You're just mad that Deborah is black and Pedro is left-wing. That's it. You have no actual critique of their performances. You just say they're in too many things. Perhaps they're in a lot of shit because they're good at their jobs. I know that's a foreign concept to people who have to grift and lie to gullible people on the internet for their popularity, but sometimes people are really good at what they do and that's why they get hired. You know, merit, a concept so foreign to you, you're probably putting it into Google Translate.
But hey, who knows? Maybe Pedro would buck the career-long trend of taking on high-profile but inappropriate roles and deliver an absolutely killer performance as Reed Richards.
You know, these please laugh clips you include in these low-quality videos are almost as pathetic as Jeb Bush asking the audience to clap.
Big game without backing it up. I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
But then there was the casting of Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, who's 38 in real life and somehow manages to look even older on screen.
Would you prefer a male companion?
But, you know, Pascal is like 50, so it would have been pretty weird to pair him up with some hot young 25-year-olds. Nothing to worry about so far, so let's keep going, shall we? Then Vanessa revealed in an interview with Entertainment Weekly back in April that this movie was going to explore the gender politics of Sue Storm and women's place in 1960s culture. Okay, sure. That kind of statement can mean a lot of different things. I mean, the film's set in the 1960s, which was a pretty important time for feminism and women's lib and all that other stuff, so I guess it would make sense to at least acknowledge it. Maybe she just means the movie will present an interesting contrast between the kind of expectations and questions that women in 1960s America were grappling with versus the modern day MCU, where they basically act like obnoxious caricatures of men if they were written by 16-year-old gender studies graduates from Portland's.
I want the audience to understand that the usage of footage of Captain Marvel is very deliberate, and that's because he can't actually provide examples of this claim in any Marvel property since this movie. That's why this video is titled Return of the MCU. because apparently it was gone. Hell, he's showing footage that isn't even in the Captain Marvel film. This is a non-canon deleted scene. Go on, check. In any case, discounting the Marvels, there have been 14 movies since Captain Marvel released, and none of them have a Captain Marvel-like character where the lead is a woman who, and I'm quoting here, acts like an obnoxious caricature of men. Of those 14 films, 10 of them were led by male actors. Of the 4 that were led by female actors, Eternals, Black Widow, Wakanda Forever, and Thunderbolts, none of those movies featured a woman who acts like an obnoxious caricature of a man. The lead of Eternals, Cersei, is as girly and motherly as they come. Natasha is a well-regarded character in the MCU by men and women alike. Shuri is nothing like her brother, nor is she obnoxious or manly, and she was only thrust into the main character slot due to the death of Chadwick Boseman. Plus, there is a comic basis for Shuri becoming the Black Panther anyway. And Yelena isn't a girl boss or whatever stupid euphemism you people come up with. She was everything you people claim modern female characters are not. Vulnerable, seeking comfort from her father, and willing to accept and contend with her flaws and mistakes. So, as always, what the hell are you even talking about? You literally only have an argument with Captain Marvel, but are trying to extrapolate that to every female character in these movies for some reason.
So, fine, we're still hanging in there, I guess. Nothing that's gonna spoil anyone's fun yet. Then there was the decision to make the Silver Surfer, one of the most iconic antagonists in all of the Marvel comics, into a female. Because of course.
Once again, you annoying blue waffle. This film is not set in the main Marvel timeline. This was a way to get an already established Fantastic Four into the main MCU universe without pretending they were always there, even though we'd never seen or heard of them up to this point. That being the case, Marvel came up with a clever method of accomplishing this by having their planet get destroyed by the planet eater Galactus, establishing Galactus as a credible antagonist and allowing a seasoned Fantastic Four to join the main timeline. Because they would be leaving this universe, you don't want to establish the original Silver Surfer, because that would mean they are going to immediately abandon him in this universe once the movie is over. You claim to want the classic Silver Surfer, but you don't realize you're arguing for him to be gone after this film. Don't you want him in the main MCU timeline, genius? Disney has already announced Avengers Secret Wars. If you know anything about that storyline, and let's not kid ourselves, you don't, then you'd know Secret Wars deals with incursions, meaning this universe is very likely going to be destroyed. You hate women so much, you're arguing for them to kill a man.
The point is, every time another one of these revelations comes out, it became just a little bit harder to ignore what seemed to be a growing pattern. Like, if Marvel were trying to refute allegations that the MCU was taking over everything that they did, they were making life pretty hard for themselves.
And now you're showing footage of Quantum Mania to make your MCU point? Wait, so is the problem supporting characters too? We can't even have semi-competent female supporting characters now? Anyway, the editing is once again betraying the drinker. He's showing footage from early on in Quantum Mania where Scott's daughter shows that she's relatively competent as she's been secretly working with Hank Pym, but this footage is right before she fucks up and traps everyone in the quantum realm. In other words, this film shows a woman making a mistake and learning from that mistake.
You're sending a signal down to the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Shut it down now.
These grifters did this same type of deception with She-Hulk. They took a single moment from a, and I'm pausing for emphasis here, television series and tried to make the show out to be some feminist power fantasy. I'm sure most of you have seen or heard about this scene.
But we can't pretend like we aren't two of the few people on Earth that can actually protect her, which is why we have to make sure of your ability to tolerate distress and regulate your emotions, especially your anger.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. When I'm catcalled in the street, when incompetent men explain my own area of expertise to me, I do it pretty much every day, because if I don't, I will get called emotional or difficult or might just literally get murdered. So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you. So all of this just feels like projecting a lot of shit onto me.
See.
No, I'm doing this.
Okay, this is completely new territory.
Look at that. Jennifer clearly undermining her male counterpart, which betrays the struggle and character development Bruce went through while dealing with being a Hulk and showing a Mary Sue being perfect. Right? Well, I bring you back to the fact that this is a television series, and in TV, there are plot threads that are resolved within an episode, and then there are plot threads that get resolved throughout the series. And Jennifer saying she knows how to control her emotions because she's a woman is one that gets resolved later in the show. They show her losing control of her emotions, which gets her into trouble, which shows that Bruce was right and that she was wrong.
This is busted.
This is the truth, presented by Intelligentsia. She-Hulk does not deserve your attention.
Okay, can we stop this?
And she's a slut.
Stop it. Don't do it.
And now, when Jennifer Walters grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs that has landed her in prison, and now she is seen only for the raging spirit that dwells within her.
We need to identify every individual who hacked my private information.
Forget them. We need to discuss your case.
I was angry, which is how anyone would respond in that situation.
But you're not just anyone. You are an out-of-control Hulk. That's what all the witnesses saw.
But if you listen to these anti-woke losers, you likely never saw this part of the show and only the out-of-context clip that these people use to farm and harvest outrage. That's the point. These charlatans rely on you not actually watching the thing so they can continue to lie to you about these media properties and collect revenue from your clicks.
And then, last week, we began to hear reports of a test screening for the latest cut of the movie, where major details of both the plot and the ending were leaked. A test screening that basically confirmed everyone's suspicions.
How do I want to phrase this? Even though it's a team of one woman and 3 guys, I think that you're going to have a situation at the end of the movie where it's women who save the day. And you're like, why? Can't Reed at least be involved? You know, you're like, come on, man. You know, like, come on.
Eloquently phrased as always, Grace. Good job. I mean, if even one of the biggest Marvel shows on the planet is calling out your movie for being too girl bossy, you know you've got fucking problems.
Or, and I know this might be hard for you to believe, she's giving her honest thoughts on a media property and isn't trying to sway people with lies, deceptive editing, and political dog whistles. You know, a film critic. It's entirely possible to criticize Marvel movies and not be a moronic political mouthpiece. What a concept. You should try it out sometime. And since Wynn is a woman saving the day, girl bossy, doesn't that make the alternative boy bossy? Susan Storm is a fucking superhero. She's allowed to save the day, guys. I could understand this criticism if it were like Kat Dennings' character, but we're talking about a super-powered being. She's saved the Fantastic Four on many different occasions. She's literally the first female superhero for Marvel's Silver Age, one of the original members of Marvel's first family, the team that started 616. Put some goddamn respect on the Invisible Woman. The hell do you expect her to be? Some damsel in distress? She's not your wife, Will.
Anyway, the gist here is that the movie culminates with Sue Storm joining forces with the female Silver Surfer to defeat Galactus, with a little help from a superpowered baby, leaving the rest of the lads with, well, not a whole lot to do. Oh my goodness, it literally is the meme.
Girls get it done.
I'm going to ignore how you missed the satire in that bit from The Boys and instead talk about how you're seriously downplaying Franklin Richards. He's not just some baby helping the girl bosses defeat the bad guy. Franklin is a god-level character with the ability to create and destroy universes. Galactus literally fears him. My assumption is they're going to try to have Franklin create a planet for Galactus to consume or something, and Sue being his mother with the ability to fly and create nearly unbreakable force fields, I can conceive of many different ways this makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, the film is literally called First Steps, after all. What did you think that was a reference to?
And all of this begs the rather obvious question. Why? Why do they keep doing this? Why do they keep pushing the same trope that clearly isn't working and hasn't for years now? Like, did nobody at the studio put up their hand and say, we've been doing this whole MCU thing for like 5 years now, nobody likes it, everyone's making fun of us, and it's losing us a shit ton of money. Can we maybe try something else now?
Let's look at all the properties you showed in this footage. Multiverse of Madness was a near billion-dollar movie that was loved by the general public. Black Widow was a film that was released during the pandemic and had a simultaneous streaming release, so its box office numbers are not indicative of public interest. What are these ratings. Love and Thunder was also liked by the public, and it made nearly $800 million at the box office. Wakanda Forever was critically acclaimed and was about $100 million shy of making $1 billion. She-Hulk is a TV show that I know most of y'all didn't even watch, hence my explanation earlier. I mean, this guy even tells you that he never finished it, but somehow is still able to give a rating. What an amazing system we have. The Guardians Holiday Special is widely regarded as one of the best MCU properties, and Loki is considered the best television show from the MCU. You showed nothing but profitable and highly rated properties, with the exception of She-Hulk, a show that got review bombed because of people like you lying and misrepresenting it. And like your terrible review of Thunderbolts, you're doing it again, trying to gaslight us right now on the quality of these properties. If anything, you're making a positive case for the so-called MCU, because the properties you showed made a collective $3 billion with numerous positive ratings from critics and the audience. Great going, dumbass. Anyway, that's all he had for us today. All wine and no cheese. I expect he and his ilk to get real fucking annoying about this movie up until its release, at which point they'll likely be bitching about Superman by then. Oh.